He was the bad boy who fought for me, the racer who burned rubber just to see me smile. So when my roommate Hector confessed he had feelings for me, the entire campus was in shock. He, Hector, was into a guy. It felt like a dream, right up until the moment I saw him with his arm wrapped tightly around my own sister, a cruel sneer twisting his lips as he said the words that would shatter my world. Me into a dude, Thartar Eurostrade-s disgusting. In that instant, I went from his secret boyfriend to the campus freak. But just when I thought our Eurostrade-d hit rock bottom, a new transfer student arrived, a guy who claimed he fell for me at first sight. And Thartar Eurostrade-s when Hector, the boy who claimed to be disgusted by me, completely lost his mind. The party was a distant thrum of bass and manufactured fun on the other end of the line. A world away from the quiet solitude of my dorm room where I was buried deep in a Netflix marathon. My phone vibrated against the mattress, and Hector Eurostrade-s name illuminated the screen. A cold knot formed in my stomach. It had been 2 weeks. 2 weeks of silence, of unanswered texts, of a hollow space in my life where his presence used to be. My thumb hovered over the red decline button, a silent rebellion against the hope that flickered in my chest. But curiosity, that treacherous beast, won the battle. Yo, Shorn. His voice was a low drawl, lazy and warm, a familiar sound that sliced through the noise of the party and straight into my heart. Eater Eurostrade-s my birthday. You coming or what? I blinked, the information catching me completely off guard. His birthday. He Eurostrade-d never mentioned it. Yeah, I managed, my voice sounding more steady than I felt. Yeah, our Eurostrade-m there. Send me the address. A grunt of acknowledgement was his only reply before he sent the location, and the line went dead. My heart hammered against my ribs as I scrambled off the bed. This was his first birthday since we Eurostrade-d gotten together, since he Eurostrade-d told me he was into me. I had to get him something meaningful, something that screamed a Circumflex Euros I know you. A Circumflex Eurostrade, a vintage vinyl, a custom leather bracelet, something that felt like us. I threw on a jacket, my mind already racing, scrolling through a mental catalog of possibilities as I hurried out into the cool night air. The frat house was an assault on the senses, a pulsating beacon of neon light and thumping music just a short walk from the quiet campus grounds. I navigated the labyrinth of drunk athletes and shrieking sorority girls, my hand clutching a hastily purchased gift card from a gas station. It was a pathetic, last-minute offering, but it was all I could manage on such short notice. I found the private room he Eurostrade-d told me about upstairs, a sanctuary from the chaos below. Taking a deep, fortifying breath, I pushed the heavy door open. The atmosphere inside was instantly suffocating. The laughter died, the conversations faltered, and all eyes turned to me. Hector was there, sprawled across a plush leather couch like a king on his throne, and curled up against him, with his arm slung possessively around her shoulders, was my sister, Clara. A circle of his cronies surrounded them, their faces etched with smirks that told me I had just walked into the punchline of a joke I didn't understand. Clara Eurostrade-s voice, sharp and laced with a cruel, teasing edge, cut through the sudden silence. Shorner Eurostrade-s your boyfriend, Hector. So, what are Eurostrade-s the deal with you getting so cozy with me? My name, spoken in that room, felt like a physical blow. I froze, my hand still gripping the doorknob, the world narrowing to the scene in front of me. Hector Eurostrade-s gaze flickered towards me, a fleeting moment of contact. before he let out a short, derisive scoff and tightened his hold on my sister. Boyfriend, he repeated, the word dripping with contempt. That word makes my skin crawl. My stomach churned, a nauseating cocktail of confusion and dread. But it was his next words, delivered with a casual, chilling cruelty, that drove the knife in deep. If he didn't look a little bit like you, he said, his eyes fixed on Clara, I wouldn't have even given him a second glance. A guy liking other guys? Farter Euros trade s just a Euros messed up. The room began to spin. The sight of his arm around my sister, the sound of his friend's Euros trade snickering, the weight of his brutal words Euros, it all coalesced into a single, devastating realization. I was never the person he wanted. I was just a substitute, a placeholder for the real prize Clara. This was the same guy who had screeched his Mustang to a halt to pick me up, who had thrown punches when some jock had dared to call me a slur. Now, he was the one branding me a freak, and his audience was lapping it up. Clara Eurostrade's eyes found mine across the room, a smug, triumphant glint in their depths. Speak of the devil, she chirped, a sickeningly sweet smile playing on her lips. There are Eurostrade's shorn now. She gestured lazily towards me, and at her silent command, Hector Eurostrade's friends descended, dragging me into the center of the room as if I were the evening Eurostrade's main attraction. The flimsy gift card in my pocket felt like a shard of glass, a pathetic symbol of my own naivety. Dude, you seriously thought Hector was into you? One of them, a bulky guy named Morris, sneered. His breath was hot and reeked of cheap beer. He told us all about that time you tried to kiss him. Said it made him want to puke. My face flushed with a burning, unbearable shame. I remembered that day vividly. The hopeful flutter in my chest, the nervous energy coursing through me as I leaned in. Hector Eurostrade's teasing smile that I had mistaken for encouragement. He had pulled back at the last second, muttering something about not being ready. Eurostrade believed him. Eurostrade thought he just needed more time. Now, the memory was twisted into a weapon against me, and the room erupted in a fresh wave of derisive laughter. I turned to Hector, my eyes pleading with him to deny it, to say something, anything, to stop this nightmare. But he just sat there, chewing on an ice cube from his drink, a lazy, indifferent smirk tugging at the corner of his mouth. Eater Eurostrade's true, shorn. Clara Eurostrade's voice was the final verdict, cold and absolute. You saw it yourself. Eurostrade am back. War Eurostrade re out. The words struck me with the force of a physical blow. A wave of white-hot rage washed over me, eclipsing the pain and humiliation. My hands shook as I reached for a nearby beer bottle, the condensation cold against my skin. Without a second thought, I appended it over his head. The room fell silent for a stunned heartbeat. Then, fueled by adrenaline and a broken heart, I swung my foot, connecting sharply with his shin. Before I could register what was happening, Morris Eurostrade's fist slammed into the side of my jaw, sending a starburst of pain through my skull. Another one of his friends, Ralph, grabbed my arms from behind, pinning me in place. Clara gasped, a theatrical sound of shock, as she began dabbing at Hector Eurostrade's face with a napkin. God, shorn, she sighed, her voice dripping with fake pity. War Eurostrade re just pathetic. Hector rose to his full height, towering over me, his dark hair plastered to his forehead. We Eurostrade redone here, he said, his voice a low, dangerous growl. Get him out. His friends obeyed instantly. They dragged me through the crowded frat house, past a sea of curious, gawking faces, and unceremoniously tossed me onto the damp lawn like a bag of trash. My cheek throbbed, a dull, aching pain that was nothing compared to the agony in my chest. The gift card had fallen from my pocket and now lay half buried in the dirt, a sad, forgotten token of a love that was never real. He had played me. He had used me to get closer to my sister, and now I was nothing more than a campus-wide joke. I staggered to my feet, the sound of the party fading into a muffled throb as I walked away into the darkness. My phone buzzed in my pocket, likely my roommate checking in, but I ignored it. The only sounds I could hear were the echoes of Hector's voice calling me a freak and Clara's laughter, as sharp and cutting as broken glass. How could I have been so stupid? How could I have believed he actually cared? The walk back to my dorm was a blur of self-loathing and despair. The humid night air clung to my clothes, and my mind was a chaotic storm of replayed conversations and shattered memories. I collapsed onto my bed, staring blankly at the ceiling. Hector Eurostrade's confession from months ago playing on a torturous loop. His confident grin, the way he Eurostrade looked me in the eye and said, "I don't Eurostrade care if you are Eurostrade a guy, Shorn. I'll Eurostrade into you." It was all a lie. Every touch, every whispered secret, every shared glance was part of a meticulously crafted deception. I had fallen for a boy who saw me as nothing more than a stepping stone, and now I was left to pick up the pieces of the life he had so casually destroyed. Sleep was an impossibility. Instead, I packed a bag. The first light of dawn would find me at the housing office, applying for a transfer to on-campus housing. I needed to get away. Away from Hector, away from Clara, away from the pitying stares and whispered rumors. I didn't Eurostrade know what the future held, but one thing was terrifyingly clear: I was done letting Hector ruin me. The night after the party felt endless. I walked back to my empty dorm room under a sky devoid of stars, the campus eerily quiet save for the distant, persistent throb of a party still raging somewhere in the distance. The sting on my cheek from Morris's punch was a dull ache, but it was Hector Eurostrade's words that had inflicted the deepest wound. His sneering disgust as he labeled me a freak. Clara Eurostrade's smug satisfaction as she watched my world crumble. By the time I reached the sanctuary of my room, my resolve had hardened into something cold and brittle. I was finished with this place, with these people. I ignored the frantic buzz of texts from my roommate Ralph, collapsing onto my bed and letting the darkness consume me. Morning arrived too soon, pulling me from a restless, dreamless sleep. I dragged my aching body to the campus housing office, my movements stiff and automatic as I filled out the transfer forms. The clerk, a bored-looking grad student, barely glanced up from her crossword puzzle as she stamped my request with a thud of finality. "You are Eurostrade LL here back within a week," she mumbled, already dismissing me. A week. I could survive a week of avoiding Hector. The more pressing issue was my so-called home life. I headed to my stepmother Eurostrade's house to collect some of my belongings, bracing myself for the inevitable onslaught. As expected, the moment I stepped over the threshold, her voice, sharp as a razor, sliced through the tense silence of the house. Well, look who decided to grace us with his presence. Out all night, were we, living it up like some spoiled, entitled brat. I bit back a retort, my jaw tight, and headed for my room, ignoring her tirade. But the maids, loitering in the hallway, exchanged knowing smirks, their whispers just loud enough to reach my ears, probably crying his eyes out over that boyfriend of his. my hands clenched into fists at my sides. I grabbed a duffel bag, stuffing it with clothes and a toothbrush before making a swift exit. This house, Hector, Clara Euros, they could all go to hell for all I cared. By noon, annoying hunger had replaced the hollow ache in my stomach. I found myself at the campus coffee shop, a bustling hub of caffeine-fueled students hunched over their laptops. I ordered a sandwich and stood by the counter, trying to make myself as inconspicuous as possible. But my luck, it seemed, had run out long ago. The door swung open, and in walked Hector, with Clara clinging to his arm like a designer accessory. Their hands brushed together, a casual, intimate gesture that felt like a deliberate performance for my benefit. My stomach plummeted, but I kept my eyes fixed on the barrister, praying they wouldn't Eurostrade TC me. Of course they did. "What are you doing here, Shorn?" Hector Eurostrade's voice cut through the ambient chatter, sharp and accusatory. I grabbed my sandwich from the counter, refusing to meet his gaze. "Eating, is that a crime now?" Clara Eurostrade's laugh was a brittle, rehearsed sound. "Oh, come on, Shorn. Don't Eurostrade tell me were Eurostrade restalking us." Tharter Eurostrade's a little desperate. "Even for you." I finally turned, my eyes meeting hers. "Eater Eurostrade's a coffee shop, Clara. Eater Eurostrade's public property. Or did you manage to buy this with Daddy Eurostrade's money too?" Her self-satisfied smile faltered for a fraction of a second, but Hector stepped forward, his body shielding hers, his jaw set in a hard line. "Don't Eurostrade start with her, Shorn. Were Eurostrade not fooling anyone?" "Fooling anyone?" I let out a short, bitter snort of laughter, my grip tightening on my paper bag. Eurostrade not the one playing elaborate, cruel games here. You made that abundantly clear last night. His eyes narrowed, and for a fleeting moment, I saw something flicker across his face, Euro's guilt, perhaps Euro's, before his expression hardened into a mask of indifference. Were Eurostrade still hung up on that? "Move on, man," Clara chimed in, her tone dripping with a saccharine, false concern that made my skin crawl. "Seriously, Shorn, Eater Eurostrade's sad. Following us around like this. What are you hoping for? A second chance?" I wanted to scream, to lash out, but the persistent throb of the bruise on my cheek was a stark reminder of the consequences of pushing Hector too far. Instead, I opted for a different kind of weapon. "Hope you enjoyed your shrimp cocktail last night, Clara," I said, my voice deceptively casual. "Heard you were Eurostrade allergic. You should be more careful next time." Her face twitched, a subtle but satisfying reaction. Hector Eurostrade's glare turned icy. "What the hell is that supposed to mean?" I shrugged, my voice flat and devoid of emotion. "Just an observation. You know, since you are Eurostrade so quick to assume Eurostrade am the villain in this story." The barrister called out my order, a welcome interruption. I grabbed my sandwich and turned to leave, but I could feel Hector Eurostrade's stare burning into my back, heavy and unreadable. I didn't Eurostrade look back. Outside, I tore into the sandwich, the food tasteless in my mouth. Every word from Hector was a fresh incision, and Clara Eurostrade's taunts were like salt poured into the wound. I spent the next few days in a self-imposed exile, crashing in Ralph Eurostrade's dorm whenever possible. The campus had become a minefield. Hector and his crew seemed to be everywhere, their derisive snickers following me down hallways like a haunting, unwelcome soundtrack. I kept my head down, focusing on my classes, waiting for the housing approval that finally, mercifully, came through. By Friday, I was moving my meager belongings into a tiny single room in one of the older dorms. It was little more than a concrete box with a depressing view of a parking lot, but it was mine. A space free from my stepmother Eurostrade's venom, Clara Eurostrade's manipulations, and Hector Eurostrade's suffocating presence. Still, I knew I couldn't Eurostrade avoid him forever. The following week, I was back at the coffee shop, a creature of habit, when Hector and his posse swaggered in. I was at the counter, waiting for my order, when his voice, dripping with arrogance, hit me like a physical slap. Back again, Shorn. You are Eurostrade nothing if not predictable. I didn't Eurostrade turn around. And you are Eurostrade nothing if not annoying. Are we done here? Clara sauntered up to his side, her lips curled into a familiar smirk. God, Shorn, you are Eurostrade obsessed, tracking our every move like some creepy ex. This time, I spun around, my patience finally snapping. You are Eurostrade not that interesting, Clara. I Eurostrade am here for a burger, not to be a supporting character in your pathetic soap opera. Hector Eurostrade's eyes flickered to my face, his gaze lingering for a moment on the fading bruise on my cheek. For a heartbeat, I thought he might say something genuine, something real. But then Clara leaned into him, her voice a stage whisper just loud enough for me to hear. He Eurostrade's just bitter. You picked me. I laughed, a short, harsh sound that held no humor. Picked you. He used me to get to you, Clara. Congratulations on being the grand prize. Hector Eurostrade's jaw clenched, but he didn't Eurostrade deny it. And his silence was more damning than any insult he could have hurled at me. I grabbed my food and pushed past them, my shoulder deliberately brushing against his. He didn't Eurostrade flinch, didn't Eurostrade move. He just watched me go, his expression a frustratingly blank canvas. As I stepped out into the crisp afternoon air, my phone buzzed. A text from Ralph. Yo, you good? Heard about the coffee shop run-in. I didn't Eurostrade reply. I was done explaining, done justifying my existence. Hector and Clara could have their twisted games. I was no longer a pawn on their board. I took a bite of my burger, the taste bland against the simmering rage in my chest. Moving into a new room was a start, but I knew it would take more than 4 new walls to escape the wreckage Hector had made of my life. I needed to rediscover who I was without his shadow looming over me. The annual campus homecoming game was a massive spectacle. It was a chaotic swirl of tailgate parties, garish face paint, and hordes of inebriated undergraduates screaming their lungs out for the football team. I had absolutely no desire to be a part of it, but Ralph had been relentless, insisting that I needed to get out and live a little. So there I was, lingering awkwardly at the edge of the stadium parking lot, surrounded by a cacophony of loud music and the greasy smell of food trucks, feeling utterly out of place in a plain white t-shirt that might as well have been a sign that read a circumflex euros I don't Eurostrade belong here. A circumflex Eurostrade people kept glancing in my direction, their expressions a mixture of pity and morbid curiosity. The story of Hector Eurostrade's birthday party had spread like a contagion. I was just about to make my escape when Clara materialized in front of me, a plate of miniature sliders in her hand, her smile so sweet it was unnerving. Shorn, long time no see. Donna Eurostrade you think we owe each other a proper catch-up? I crossed my arms over my chest, unimpressed. The last time we a circumflex euros caught up a circumflex euros trade, I watched your boyfriend publicly humiliate me and call me a freak. I think our euros trade LL pass. She let out a light, airy laugh, twirling a strand of her perfectly curled hair. Oh, don't a euros trade be so sensitive. That was just a little party drummer. Her eyes darted nervously to the side, and I caught a glimpse of Hector watching us from a nearby beer pong table. Before I could formulate a suitably scathing response, Clara Eurostrade's entire demeanor shifted. Angry red splotches erupted across her cheeks, and her eyes began to water. She clutched at her throat, making exaggerated gasping sounds, and then, with the grace of a seasoned actress, she crumpled to the ground, the plate of sliders scattering across the pavement. The surrounding crowd immediately turned, a sea of smartphones already raised to capture the unfolding drama. Clara! Hector sprinted over, dropping to his knees beside her. She grabbed his arm, her voice a weak, pathetic whimper. Shorner euros, those slitters euros, they had shrimp in them. I told him I was allergic, but he gave them to me anyway. I stood there, frozen, the baseless accusation hitting me with the force of a physical blow. What? I didn't Eurostrade give you anything, Clara. Hector Eurostrade's head snapped up, his eyes blazing with a furious, protective fire. You are Eurostrade read unbelievable, Sean. You knew she was allergic. She Eurostrade's lying. I took a step forward, but it was too late. The crowd was already a jury, and their murmurs were the verdict. I was the villain. Clara, in Hector Eurostrade's arms, played her part to perfection. Whimpering, I never did anything to him, Hector. Why would he do this to me? Hector scooped her up into his arms, his voice softening to a tender tone I had never heard him use with me. Hang on, baby. I Eurostrade am getting you to the hospital. He shot me one last look, a glare so intense it felt like it could burn through steel. This isn't Eurostrade over, Shorn. As he carried her away through the parting crowd, I was left alone, drowning in a sea of their whispers and accusatory stares. Dude, Farter Eurostrade's so messed up, some guy muttered, shaking his head in disgust. I wanted to scream, to defend myself, to tell them all that I hadn't Eurostrade even touched her damn food. But what was the point? They had already made up their minds. I left the tailgate, my hands jammed deep into my pockets, and walked back to the sterile silence of my dorm room. Later that night, my phone buzzed with a notification. It was a video sent by Clara. She was propped up in a hospital bed, looking pale and pitiful, her hand clasped tightly in Hector Eurostrade's. I just feel so awful, she whined, her voice barely a whisper. Why would Shorn do this? Hector leaned in closer, tenderly brushing a stray strand of hair from her face. Don't Eurostrade worry about him. He Eurostrade's just screwed up. A guy like that, being into other guys eater Eurostrade's, no wonder he Eurostrade's so unhinged. The video ended abruptly. I stared at the blank screen, my thumb hovering over the delete button, but I couldn't Eurostrade bring myself to press it. Instead, I retrieved a pack of cigarettes from my desk drawer, a nasty habit I had picked up in the aftermath of the birthday party. I lit one, the bitter taste of the smoke doing little to soothe my frayed nerves. For weeks, I had clung to a sliver of hope that Hector might come to his senses, that he might offer some kind of explanation. Now I knew better. He didn't just dislike me, he was disgusted by me. He saw me as a defective, broken thing. I exhaled a plume of smoke, watching it curl and dissipate into the stale air. Explaining myself to Hector was a futile exercise. He would always choose to believe Clara over me. He had probably convinced himself that I deserved every bit of this. I stubbed out the cigarette and crawled into bed, the image of them in the hospital bed looping endlessly in my mind. Sleep was a distant, unattainable luxury. The next morning, I dragged myself to class, the campus buzzing with fresh gossip. I caught snippets of conversations as I walked Euros Clara Euros Trade's near-death experience, my name being tossed around like a curse. Ralph caught up with me outside the lecture hall, his expression grim. "Yo, Shorn, did you see the group chat? Thayer Euros Trade saying you tried to poison Clara." I let out a humorless snort, adjusting the strap of my backpack. "Poison her? She set me up, Ralph. I didn't Euros Trade touch her damn sliders." He nodded, but his eyes darted away uncomfortably. "Yeah, man, I know. But people are really eating it up. Just Euros watch your back, okay?" I shrugged him off and headed inside, but the weight of their collective judgment followed me. In the cafeteria later, I tried to keep a low profile, grabbing a tray and heading for an empty corner. No such luck. Hector Euros Trade's voice, cold and menacing, cut through the lunchtime chatter as he and Clara approached my table. "Still showing your face around here?" he'd asked, his tone low and dangerous. I set my tray down, forcing myself to meet his gaze. "Eater Euros Trade's a cafeteria, Hector. Ire Euros Trade am allowed to eat." Clara smirked, leaning against him possessively. "Maybe he Euros Trade's hoping you are Euros Trade LL notice him again." How pathetic. My knuckles turned white as I gripped the edge of my tray. "You are Euros Trade the one putting on a show, Clara. That allergic reaction of yours. Convenient timing, donna Euros Trade you think?" Her eyes widened in a display of feigned innocence. "What are you implying?" I almost died. Hector stepped between us, a physical barrier, his voice like ice. "Back off, Shorn. You are Euros Trade done enough." "Done enough?" I laughed, the sound sharp and bitter. "You are Euros Trade the one who humiliated me in front of the entire school, Hector. You and your little girlfriend can keep your twisted drummer. Ire Euros Trade am out." I grabbed my tray and walked away, feeling their stares burning into my back. I didn't Euros Trade need to look to know that Hector was still watching me, his silence a more potent insult than any word he could have spoken. I dumped my untouched food in the trash and headed for my dorm, a tight, angry knot in my chest. Clara Euros Trade's setup had been a resounding success. Hector was completely under her spell, and I was the undisputed campus villain. But I would not beg for their forgiveness. Not now, not ever. The campus had become a pressure cooker in the days following Clara Euros Trade's homecoming performance. Whispers trailed me like my own shadow through classrooms, across the quad, even in the hushed aisles of the library. I learned to keep my head down, to become an expert at dodging the glares and the snickers. But the real explosion came on Monday morning. I was outside the lecture hall when Ralph shoved his phone in my face, his expression a mixture of shock and pity. "Dude, you have to see this." It was a video posted in the official campus Snapchat group, posted by Hector himself. The clip was from months ago, a private moment in his dorm room that he had now made sickeningly public. It showed me, my face flushed with a mixture of hope and nerves, leaning in to kiss him. And it showed him, a self-satisfied smirk on his face, deftly dodging my advance, his voice casual as he said, "Sorry, man. Ire Euros Trade am not there yet." The video then cut to a later scene, him laughing with his buddy Morris, who was clearly holding the camera. Kissing a guy? Hattori Eurostrade's voice dripped with revulsion. Ir Eurostrade d rather hurl. The caption beneath the video was a final, brutal twist of the knife. Some people just don't Eurostrade t get the hint. My hands trembled as I handed the phone back to Ralph. He posted €30 for everyone to see. Ralph nodded, wincing in sympathy. Eater Eurostrade's everywhere, man. The comments are brutal. Thayer Eurostrade recalling you a creep, a pavag Euros you name it. I clenched my jaw, the humiliation searing fire in my veins. I had been so naive, so willing to believe his rejection that day was just a matter of timing. Now, my most vulnerable moment was being played on a loop for the entire school to ridicule and dice it. I skipped class. I couldn't Eurostrade face them. I went straight back to my dorm, the video replaying in my head like a cruel, inescapable melody. By afternoon, the sky had opened up, a torrential downpour that perfectly mirrored the storm inside me. I was crossing the quad, my hood pulled low, when Hector appeared as if from nowhere, an umbrella held over his head, his expression frustratingly unreadable. I tried to sidestep him, to continue on my way, but he moved to block my path. Shorn, we need to talk. I let out a laugh, a sound that was cold and sharp and utterly devoid of humor. Torque, you put that video out there for the world to see, Hector. You turned me into a campus-wide punching bag. What could we possibly have to talk about? His eyes flickered away for a moment before returning to mine. I didn't Eurostrade think it would blow up like this. You didn't Eurostrade think. I stepped closer, the rain soaking through my sneakers, my voice rising with righteous anger. You called me a pervert in front of the whole school. What the hell do you want from me now? He shifted uncomfortably, his grip tightening on the umbrella handle. I was trying to help Clara. She told me you were messing with her family. You and your mom. You thought what? I cut him off, my voice raw. You thought humiliating me would somehow fix her daddy issues? Were Eurostrade a coward, Hector? His face darkened, a storm brewing in his eyes. But before he could respond, I swung my arm, knocking the umbrella from his grasp. It clattered to the wet pavement. Useless. You don't Eurostrade get to play the victim here, I snapped, the rain plastering my hair to my face. You and Clara conspired to make me the bad guy, and now Eurostrade am the one everyone hates. Are you happy? His jaw tightened, rain dripping from his chin. Eurostrade am not happy, Shorn. Eurostrade am trying to make things right. Right? I shoved him hard, my hands shaking with rage. You think a simple circumflex Eurostrade fixes this? You stood by and watched while your friends beat me up. You laughed when Clara set me up. You are Eurostrade not sorry. You are Eurostrade just scared. I am done with you. He grabbed my arm, his grip surprisingly firm, but not rough. Eurostrade am not scared. Eurostrade am telling you, I never meant for it to go this far. I yanked my arm free, my voice dropping to a low, dangerous whisper. You meant every single word in that video. Doma Eurostrade you dare lie to me now. For a split second, he looked like he might argue, but then his shoulders slumped in defeat, and he just stood there, letting the rain soak through his jacket. I was helping Clara, he repeated, his voice quieter now, almost pleading. She said you ruined her life. I laughed again, a bitter, broken sound that echoed in the rain-soaked air. And you believed her. You are Eurostrade pathetic, Hector. I turned and walked away, the rain blurring my vision. His voice, faint but clear, followed me across the quad. Sean, I'er euros trade am sorry. I didna euros trade T look back. Sorry wasna euros trade T enough. Not after he had turned my life into a sick, viral joke. By the time I reached my dorm, drenched and shaking, I was done playing the victim. I was done being nice. I sat down at my desk, opened my laptop, and filed a formal complaint with the university citing invasion of privacy and harassment. And I didn't stop there. I called the local police station and reported Hector Morris and the rest of his crew for the assault at the frat party and for the public distribution of the video. I attached a screenshot of the post, my hands surprisingly steady for the first time in days. The next morning, the video was gone, scrubbed from the group chat after the Dean of Students' Euros Trade office got involved. Ralph texted me, "Yo, Hector Euros Trade S pissed. Their Euros Trade re all in deep shit." I didn't Euros Trade T reply. I didn't Euros Trade T care how Hector felt. He had made his choices and now I was making mine. By noon, I was in the cafeteria, grabbing a coffee, when Morris and another one of Hector's cronies walked past, their glares like daggers. "You really snitched, huh?" Morris sneered, leaning in close, his voice a low threat. "You are Euros Trade going to regret that." I took a slow sip of my coffee, my eyes meeting his without flinching. "Try me, Morris. Our Euros Trade V got nothing left to lose." He backed away, muttering under his breath, but I caught the word a circumflex Euros freaker Euros Trade again. It still stung, but I was past the point of caring. I had spent far too long letting Hector and his Neanderthal friends walk all over me. Not anymore. Later, in the library, I overheard two girls whispering about Clara and Hector. Apparently, they had made their relationship official, posting a series of sickeningly cute selfies from some rooftop bar. The news landed like a punch to the gut, but I forced myself to shake it off. Let them have their picture-perfect Instagram romance. I was done being their collateral damage. As I was leaving the library, my phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "Hey, Sean. So what happened? You okay?" I frowned, my thumb hovering over the ignore button. It was probably another prank, another cruel joke at my expense. But some flicker of curiosity, made me reply. "War Euros Trade S this?" The response was almost instantaneous. "Just someone who thinks you deserve better." I stared at the screen, a knot of uncertainty in my stomach. I didn't Euros Trade T know if it was a trap or a lifeline. But either way, I wasn't ready to trust anyone. Not after Hector. Not yet. The campus was still buzzing with the fallout from Hector Euros Trade S deleted video, but I did my best to tune it out, keeping my head down and focusing on my classes. The police had Euros Trade T pressed charges, of course. Hector Euros Trade S father was some big shot donor to the university, a fact that surprised no one. But the Dean Euros Trade S official had at least silenced his crew for the time being. I was grabbing a coffee between lectures when I noticed the campus Reddit board was blowing up. A new post had appeared on the confessions page, and it was getting a lot of attention. "Yo, transfer student here. Looking for a finance major named Sean. Duty Euros Trade S hot. No cap. If he Euros Trade S single, can I shoot my shot?" I froze, my own name staring back at me from the screen. The comments were already flooding in, most of them assuming it was about a different, more popular Sean. I let out a dry snort and pocketed my phone. Whoever this guy was, he was either completely clueless or an expert-level troll. Later that afternoon, I was in a packed lecture hall for an economics seminar. The students crammed together like sardines. I found an empty seat in the back row, hoping to blend into the background. No such luck. A tall guy with a lazy, infectious grin plopped down in the seat next to me, his backpack hitting the floor with a heavy thud. "This seat taken?" he asked. I shook my head, barely glancing up from my notebook. He leaned in closer, his voice a low, conspiratorial whisper. "Good. I've been looking for you, Sean." I turned to him then, raising an eyebrow. "Do I know you?" He just grinned wider, completely unfazed by my cold reception. "Not yet. Miguel. The transfer kid. Saw you on the quad last week and damn, I was hooked." He pulled out his phone and showed me the Reddit post. "Thought me. No shame in my game." I blinked, caught somewhere between suspicion and reluctant amusement. "Were serious? You don't even know me." Miguel shrugged, leaning back in his chair with an easy confidence. "Don't need to know you to know I like what I see. Labels, drama, whatever. I'm just vibing." "So, are you in or what?" I let out a short, sharp laugh. "You were bold. LL give you that. But am not exactly looking for a rebound right now. Thanks, though." He smirked, undeterred. "Rebound? Nar. am playing for keeps. Just give me a shot, Sean." Before I could shut him down for good, the professor began his lecture, and I turned my attention back to my notes, acutely aware of Miguel's occasional glances in my direction. The guy was impossibly cocky, but his light, easygoing vibe was a jarring contrast to Hector's dark, brooding intensity. Still, after everything been through, I wasn't about to trust some random, charming stranger. As soon as the class ended, I made a break for it, hoping to dodge Miguel's relentless persistence. I wasn't fast enough. Hector was waiting for me outside the lecture hall, leaning against a brick wall, his eyes locked on me like a predator tracking its prey. "Were the new guy?" he asked, his voice tight with an emotion I couldn't quite place. I kept walking. "None of your business, Hector." He fell into step beside me, his hands shoved deep into his pockets. "You are getting cozy with some transfer kid now." That was quick. I stopped abruptly, turning to face him, my patience worn thin. "Quick, you publicly dumped me in front of half the school, and then posted a humiliating video to make sure the other half knew I was a joke. You don't get to have an opinion on who I talk to." Hector's jaw clenched, his voice dropping to a low growl. "I messed up, okay? But you and that what are his deal?" I laughed, the sound incredulous. "What are your deal? You made it crystal clear that you are straight, Hector. Or was that just for Clara's benefit?" He stepped closer, his eyes searching mine, a flicker of something raw and desperate in their depths. "What if I said am not sure what I am? What if I said I wish you t'd a die?" I stared at him, his words hitting me like a physical blow. "You are got to be kidding me. You think saying that now fixes anything? You humiliated me, Hector. Go have your identity crisis somewhere else." He reached out and grabbed my wrist, his grip not hard, just enough to stop me from walking away. Sean, Eurostrade am trying to be real with you here. I didn't Eurostrade mean to hurt you like that. I yanked my hand from his grasp, my voice like ice. You didn't Eurostrade mean to. You laughed while your friends called me a freak. You let Clara play me for a fool. Save your pathetic excuses. His face fell, the mask of indifference crumbling for a moment, but I didn't Eurostrade stick around to witness his performance. I turned and headed for the library, feeling his heavy gaze on my back the entire way. Halfway there, my phone buzzed. It was Miguel. He had somehow already gotten my number. Yo, you ditched me. Rude. Coffee tomorrow? I rolled my eyes, but a small, involuntary smile touched my lips. The guy was persistent. Eurostrade give him that. The next day, in the cafeteria, Ralph slid into the seat across from me, a wide grin on his face. Heard about the Reddit guy. That transfer dude has some serious balls, going public like that. I shrugged, poking listlessly at my fries. He Eurostrade's just a flirt. Eater Eurostrade's probably a prank. Ralph raised an eyebrow. Or maybe he Eurostrade's for real. You could use someone war Eurostrade's not. You know Euros Hector. I snorted. Farter Eurostrade's a low bar. Before Ralph could press the issue, Clara Eurostrade's shrill voice cut through the noise. She was at a nearby table, with Hector sitting silently beside her, her arm looped through his like he was a prize she had won. Is Sean still moping? She called out, loud enough for half the cafeteria to turn their heads. That Reddit post wasn't Eurostrade about you, was it? How sad. I leaned back in my chair, a slow, deliberate smirk spreading across my face. Jealous, Clara? Worried someone else is stealing your spotlight? Her smile tightened at the edges, but it was Hector Eurostrade's reaction that caught my attention. His eyes were fixed on me, his expression intense and unreadable. Careful, Sean, he said, his voice low and laced with a. You don't Eurostrade know what you are Eurostrade getting into with that guy. I stood up, grabbing my tray. And you don't Eurostrade know when to quit. Leave me alone, Hector. As I walked away, I saw Miguel at the counter, watching the entire exchange. He caught my eye and winked, holding up his coffee cup in a silent toast. Drummer seems to follow you, huh? He said as I passed him. Apparently, I muttered, brushing past him. But his easy laugh followed me, light and unburdened, as if he couldn't care less about the messy, complicated drama I was drowning in. It was annoying, but a small part of me found it strangely refreshing. Hector's words echoed in my minder Euros. I wish you weren't a GUI Euros, and I hated the way they lingered, the way they planted a seed of doubt. Miguel was a wild card, a complete unknown, but at least he wasn't playing games. Or so I hoped. I wasn't Eurostrade ready to place my bets on anyone just yet, not after Hector Eurostrade's betrayal. But Miguel Eurostrade's persistent grin was becoming harder and harder to ignore. And for the first time in weeks, I felt a tiny spark of something that wasn't Eurostrade anger or despair. It felt a little like hope. I was dodging puddles on my way to the library when Clara cornered me outside, her eyes blazing with a righteous fury, as if she Eurostrade been lying in wait for this very ambush. The air was crisp, the kind of perfect fall evening that made you want to just keep walking. But she blocked my path, her arms crossed tightly over her chest. Are you happy now, Sean? She spat, her voice dripping with venom. Hector Eurostrade parading around campus with some freshman boy toy, and I Eurostrade am the one who looks like a joke. You turned him, didn't Eurostrade tu? I let out a snort of derision, stepping around her. Turned him, Clary. He Eurostrade's not a light switch. Maybe he just finally realized how toxic you are. She grabbed my sleeve, her voice rising to a shrill shriek. You are Eurostrade Ria freak, Sean. You ruined everything. My family, my life, and now Hector. Why don't Eurostrade you just disappear? I yanked my arm from her grasp, my last shred of patience evaporating. Keep yelling, Clara. Eater Eurostrade's not my fault. Your boyfriend is finally figuring himself out. Maybe you should try looking in a mirror for once. Her face twisted into a mask of rage, and she raised her hand to slap me. I caught her wrist midair, my grip firm, pushing her back against the cold brick wall of the library. My voice was a low, dangerous whisper. Dona Eurostrade T. You are Eurostrade V done enough damage. She froze, her eyes wide with shock. I released her and walked away, her stream of curses fading into the evening air behind me. I didn't Eurostrade T look back. Clara Eurostrade's public meltdown wasn't Eurostrade T my problem anymore. In fact, I Eurostrade D already taken care of her. In the days after Hector Eurostrade's new Euros relationship Euros went public, I Eurostrade D anonymously tipped off the campus Reddit board with a treasure trove of evidence I had been collecting. Screenshots of her texts to Morris, meticulously planning the shrimp slider setup at the tailgate. A recorded phone call where she Eurostrade D bragged to a friend about pushing me down a flight of stairs our freshman year. The board had exploded. The Dina Eurostrade's office, faced with undeniable proof, had Eurostrade T hesitated. Clara was suspended for a full year, her reputation completely and utterly trashed. Rumor had it her furious mother had grounded her indefinitely, possibly even pulling her out of the university for good. I pushed my way into the library, trying to shake off the unpleasant encounter, when my phone buzzed. It was Miguel. Meet me at the quad after your study sesh. Got something to show you. I sighed, tempted to blow him off, but his relentless, infectious energy was starting to grow on me. I texted back a single word fine. Later, I found him leaning against an old oak tree in the quad, his easy grin illuminating the deepening dusk. He waved me over, gesturing towards a wooded path that snaked away from the manicured lawns. Want to take a walk? I heard something weird down there. I raised an eyebrow. Weird? Like what? A ghost? He laughed, nudging my shoulder playfully. Nar, more like drummer. Come on, humor me. Against my better judgment, I followed him. The path was quiet, secluded, the kind of spot where couples snuck off during campus events. As we walked deeper into the trees, we heard the muffled voices, low and heated and distressingly familiar. I froze in my tracks when I heard Hector Eurostrade's voice, soft and desperate, murmur a single word. Shorner Euros God, Shorn. Miguel Eurostrade's head whipped around, his playful grin instantly vanishing. Before I could process what was happening, he was storming through the trees, and I trailed behind, a sickening sense of dread pooling in my gut. And there he was. Hector, tangled up with some freshman who looked eerily, unsettlingly like me. Same dark hair, same build, a cheap imitation. The kid mumbled something back, but I didn't care. I felt a wave of nausea and turned away, but Miguel was already on the attack. Yo, Hector, what the hell? War Euros trade re out here in the woods, moaning Schoner Euros trade s name with some knockoff version. Futter Euros trade s low, even for you. Hector scrambled to his feet, his face ashen in the dim light. Miguel, this isn't a Euros trade, tar Euros save it, Miguel snapped, stepping between me and Hector, a protective shield. You are Euros trade re-obsessed, dude. Let him go. I crossed my arms, my voice flat and devoid of emotion. Hector, I put up with all of your crap because I thought you did something for me our freshman year. When I lost my luggage at the bus station, someone told me you went all the way back to get it for me. I felt like I owed you. But we Euros trade redone now. The debt is paid. Hector Euros trade's eyes widened, a flicker of genuine confusion in them. What? I didn't Euros trade tar Euros, Miguel cut him off, his voice sharp and angry. No, Hector, that was me. I was at the station that day. I saw Shorn, noticed his bag got left behind, and I hauled it all the way back to campus for him. I didn't Euros trade T even get his name until later. He turned to me then, his voice softening. Farter Euros trade s when I knew I was into you, Shorn. From that first moment, I stared at him, the memory clicking into place. A senior had told me it was Hector who had retrieved my bag, and I had never thought to question it. All this time, my gratitude, my sense of obligation, had been directed at the wrong person. Hector Euros trade's face fell, the last of his defenses crumbling as he realized he had lost his final card. Char Euros, Miguel didn't Euros trade T let him finish. He swung his fist, a clean, satisfying crack as it connected with Hector Euros trade's jaw, sending him stumbling backward. War Euros trade real fraud, man. Stay away from him. I grabbed Miguel Euros trade's arm, pulling him back. Enough. Let her Euros trade's go. Hector didn't Euros trade T follow us. He just stood there in the darkness, clutching his face. As we walked away, Miguel muttered, "Should have hit him harder." I smirked, despite the turmoil of the evening. War Euros trade completely unhinged, you know that. He grinned, shrugging. Only for you. Back at the dorm, Miguel followed me all the way to my room, still buzzing with adrenaline from the fight. So, he said, leaning against the doorframe, "Are you going to thank me for saving your ass back there?" I rolled my eyes, tossing my backpack onto my bed. Saving me? I had it handled. Sure you did, he teased. But for real, Shorn. I've Euros trade been into you since that day at the bus station. I don't Euros trade care about the drama, the labels, any of it. For me, Eater Euros trade's just you. I paused, letting his words sink in. After months of Hector Euros trade's lies and manipulations, Miguel Euros trade's blunt, unwavering honesty felt like a lifeline. I stepped closer to him, my voice steady. "You are Euros trade serious, huh?" "Dead serious," he said, his cocky grin softening into something genuine and warm. "So, what do you say? You me a real date?" I laughed, a real, unburdened laugh, a sound that felt lighter and freer than anything I had felt in months. "All right, Miguel. Let her Euros trade's do it." His eyes lit up, and he pulled me into a quick, impulsive hug, his voice muffled against my shoulder. "Hell yeah, Shorn. You wanna Euros trade regret this." As he pulled back, I caught a glimpse of his ridiculously happy, hopeful grin. And for the first time in a very long time, I actually believed in the possibility of a fresh start. Hector had been a mistake. Clara had been a nightmare. But Miguel Euros, Miguel felt real. The story of Shorn and Hector is a roller coaster of betrayal and heartbreak, but it ends with a new beginning. But what do you think about Hector's last-ditch efforts to win Shorn back? Was it genuine confusion about his feelings, or just pure jealousy seeing Shorn move on? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments. And if you enjoyed this story, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more.